What's up, y'all? Anyway, um, I wrote a script, uh, kind of like outlining or detailing or reviewing this movie that I really like, and I hope you enjoy it. And let's get into it. It's a dragon. We're gonna go ahead and read this off. Took me about an hour to make, and I hope you like it. All right, movie's called Watchmen. What I love about Watchmen is that the protagonist doesn't find themselves in a typical happy ending. In most superhero films, you have your antagonists, protagonists, and sometimes the antagonists' motivations, goals, and humble beginning don't make sense. In fact, they seem to be solely there to glaze the protagonist. This is not the case in this movie. In fact, there is arguably one of the strongest characters ever in a film put on screen called Dr. Manhattan. He is just he is just the tip of the iceberg and possibly the least likable character in the film. The beginning sets the tone of the rest of the movie, where a character called the comedian really resembles your standard combat veteran with PTSD. At first glance, he would seem like a complete Boy Scout. The longer the film goes on, you realize he wasn't such a great guy. As he said, I shot kids. I did terrible things to women. All what I believe what the protests were all about for Vietnam. You're a baby killer. You're a rapist. Typical hippie monologue that would often fuel marching and protests for the Vietnam War, which they participated in. What I love about the comedian is he doesn't seem to shine from his opinion about dealing with targets. He's unfiltered ball of resentment of his circumstance. Much like someone put into difficult positions, he seems to enjoy what he does. He calls his situation he finds himself as comedic or laughable. This is a bit off topic, but the other adaptations of the Joker just come off disingenuous. By the comedian, but the comedian, how many times you seen a war vet come home needing counseling or suffering from PTSD, and they are looked at the goody two shoes when really it's a departed situation where no one wins and everyone loses. It's kind of like that, and there's not too many mainstream movies I can think of aside from Departed with endings like this. I don't know if you saw Departed with uh, Willie DiCaprio and the Jason Bourne guy, Matt Damon, but that was a movie that had a similar ending where no one wins and no one wins and no one loses. It's kind of like a just got iffy, just got real mixed up. Now I said the Joker comes off as fake, like who brought the circus in town, or how is he even the slight threat to Batman? To me, they come off as people, regular people. The comedian is different. This is someone I believe I can truly get behind that is relatable to our real world of what's going on. One of the most heartbreaking quotes I heard it One of the most heartbreaking quotes I heard was, "It came true." What came true? Did the prince kiss the princess and defeat the dragon? No. What came true is the American dream, the ability to march, protest, and do all this shit you'd think they were marching for the enemy. The path to hell is written in good deeds. Think about it. Marching and protests, a luxury that other countries don't possess. It came true. It came true. They're safe. They're baby boomers because this GI Bill promoted opportunities for vets to start a family, work with commutable with a commendable resume. It came true, and laughing at his circumstances, while firing and dispersing a crowd, it came true, as what I deem a coping mechanism that he does throughout the film. This coping mechanism when he laughs. It came true. He's laughing at his circumstances. It's like, he's happy, but he's on the surface, but in in deep down he's suffering. It came true, laughing at his circumstances while firing and dispersing a crowd. It came true. What I deem a coping mechanism. He smiles with a cigar, the type you cut out. You're looking at it. It came true. Being happy, yet unhappy at the same time. As if it's a coping mechanism, until later you see he carries a lot of regret for the things he did. What I love about Watchmen is that you have these characters that are literally comic book characters running around in civilian clothing. Not your typical story like Batman or Superman, where the bad guys seem over the top, bright colors. A law is passed in the movie where it is illegal to wear a mask. You have some protests in the start of the film, but are shown one guy being loaded in an old style hospital van, which is exactly how someone who behaves like this, dresses like this, might be treated. Typically, someone announcing they are a hero. I'm here for you. I'm this and I'm that, which really they're just a regular person. Levels of grandeur get treated poorly. I mean, if someone's standing on the street, this is just a small example, trying to stop crime like drugs or sales of weapons in the area, they might receive enough complaints he was shaking down innocent people. As he loaded in the van, you can feel a tone shift. Mothman was his name, but the new laws would change how Mothman looks at the world, conducts himself, and probably dresses. He's loaded into an ambulance, I assume deemed a 5150 or some other code to realize he is a danger to this world and needs to be taken into custody. I assume. It's this time of mental health was really in its infancy. What I love about this film is the introduction of Rorschach, who carries a mask that has a projection test that is used in mental health assessments. The test is a bunch of cards. What do you see? As each card is revealed, the test giver will ask the tester, what do you see? The person you're interviewing will say things like, some nice flowers, or sunshines and rainbows. But for different people, they might see something that brings up memories. The whole test is fascinating, and a test I haven't seen in more than two movies. Then there's Owlman, which at first glance you think this is Batman, which couldn't be further from the truth. Owlman resembles an owl, not a bat, and that's where everything is built around the owl having 360-degree view and excellent eyesight. And let's see, Owlman resembles an owl, not a bat. He's not a furry or anything like that, like Master Splinter or Man Bat. He is a man with access to technology like Batman. One common theme across different adaptations is owls have exceptional eyesight. There's also Miss Jupiter and original Owlman, playing as a retired part of Vigilantes. They have some role as guardian and mentorship to the team, but it's not the most important parts of the story. Miss Jupiter had a child they called Silk Spectre, who was hot, like her mom. Subtle humor is enjoyable as she looks at her old pictures. She says, look, men used to throw themselves at me. Kind of what you expect your mom to say after reminiscing about golden times. There's really nothing goofy or colorful about this film, other than a disturbing side story unveiled in the story of a story. I found it a waste of time entering. However, it did paint a broader picture of what he was reading. There's also Robert Nixon in the film, which, if you're not familiar with the Watergate scandal, you might want to click off and investigate that right now. That because that was the highlight of his career that I can remember. It's always a negative that will stand out over everything positive. But I mean, that's what I remember. Let's see. So this is supposed to be happening on a third term, which, if you're familiar with the rules of the presidency, you're only allowed 2 terms. It feels like the height of the Cold War, and the project that Dr. Manhattan is working on looks like Fat Man or some other type of bomb or weapon of mass destruction. What I love about this film is there is very little catchphrases or corny scenes you might find something abundant in children's movies like PG-13. It's a lot of superhero films. They got a lot of corny jokes for children. Well, they're for everybody, but I mean more or less for kids. So it looks like he's working on Fat Man or some other weapon of mass destruction. What I love about this film, there is very little catchphrases or corny scenes. You might find something that children might admire. Rather, you have extraordinary people that have seemingly decommissioned aside from Dr. Manhattan. He becomes increasingly nihilistic and careless. In one part, you have him and his girlfriend giving neuron stimulation. What I That's what I thought he was doing in one scene. It should be considered unnatural when his girlfriend protests. We're reminded she is still a woman, and Western women want to be the center of the universe, no matter the importance of the work. One experience when I was younger, my mother used to feed a neighbor. My sister would get jealous of his presence. Why is Deontel here? As she clean and dry his boogers and his nose and hold him like a baby on the couch, even though he was 5. He always seemed sick, with a cold, or hungry. He'd cry my mother's name, and pound on her door until a couple times his mother would come and get him and beat him at our door. Another example was my cousin. We'll just call her Lizard. Her mother, for whatever reason, was visiting a shrink and asked, "What's the most important dynamic of human relationships?" The shrink replied, "Relationship to your spouse, then to your kids." As my cousin Lizard heard this, she broke down in tears, realizing she is not number one priority, even though she was a single child. My aunt replied, "I love your father more than you," and she couldn't take the news well. She was visibly shaken by what my aunt had said. Not to be taken as offensive to the females of my family, just repeating what I heard and what was said. Even as the movie progresses, Dr. Manhattan seems irritated using his powers. In a almost careless manner, he seems all powerful but powerless in human psychology, almost taking a nihilistic approach or a dwindling charismatic view. It's a very mind boggling psychology to understand. One on One other thing about this film that sets the standard as of now, I can only recall Darkman, Watchmen, Logan, and Luke Cage as the only superhero films that had an R rating. The themes are deep. I read somewhere that it's better to have loyal enemies and not so loyal friends. And boy, did that really resonate here. Sure, there was a TV series, but I didn't take the same interest as this movie did. Everything about it is just perfect. I hope you enjoyed this take. It took me about, I don't know, 30 minutes, 50 minutes to write this up. Because I didn't want to be like scrambling in like my head head for answers. So I had to write it down and how I felt about the film because I really enjoyed this film, and it really has some realistic tones and very mature themes that I think a lot of other people might enjoy. I hope you enjoyed this take of dissecting this movie, and I'll see y'all next time.